I exposed my wife's secret affair with my friend by printing every hidden message they sent each other. For the sake of the narrative, let's call her Mia. My wife, 26F, cheated on me, 27M, with a friend of mine, Jack. Background: we met at another friend's wedding when I was 22. She was the bride's friend and I was the groom's friend, therefore they seated us at the same table hoping we would cross paths. I was quite surprised by her beauty when I first saw her. We discovered we shared a lot when she sat down and we started to chat. We clicked right away. After supper, we lingered for a little before heading to the dance floor. Throughout the evening, we drank and danced. We ended up kissing in the center of the dance floor, and when we broke off, our friends, the bride and groom, came over to ask what was going on between us. Playing matchmaker made them really happy. We basically ignored it and proceeded on through our evening. We parted without sharing numbers, but approximately 1 week later I received a text from her asking me out. The bride had supplied my number. Of course, I answered yes and developed a relationship out of it. The relationship was excellent. Apart from little disputes, we never truly battled and it was never anything major. About 2 years into our relationship, I finally asked her to wed me. We were married less than a year later. Just before our first anniversary, we were married for a little more than a year when everything collapsed upon me. I could find small irritations in anything. Her phone got more guarded, girls' nights grew more frequent, and our sex life nearly non-existent. I had brought this up several times, but she dismissed it, saying I was letting my fears control me. She would carry on as though what I sensed and tried to express had no relevance to her. I grew much colder as a result. We seldom spoke unless it was something vital. I stopped kissing her goodbye as I headed to work. I grabbed her phone and laptop one night while she slept, skimming her texts, emails, and messenger apps but found nothing. Inspired by stories on this site, I decided to investigate her car. I noticed a second phone as I reached for her keys and glanced in her car. Though I knew right away what was happening, I wanted all the proof for when I called her out. She should not have spoken anything like that, something which had only happened once or anything dumb like that. Searching the phone, I discovered just one number. I linked the phone to my computer, went over every note and printed every message along with every picture. I looked at divorce lawyers late tonight. Reading profiles of lawyers for hours in my home office, I came upon one that appealed to me and emailed him. But because it being a Saturday, he wasn't at the office. Then I wanted to find out who the guy was, so I grabbed my phone, entered the number and was prepared to claim I was from Spectrum since who doesn't have Spectrum? Jack's contact then suddenly showed up though. It took me a minute to arrange 2 and 2 together, but I blew up when I did. In my workplace, I was screaming and berating. My wife entered the door to check on me. Upon seeing her, I advised her to get the fuck out. She went to our room and locked the door. I had never raised my voice over a reasonable level or cursed at my wife. I silently raged from my office all day, just staring at the wall. I asked if he would come with me after phoning one of my friends, the wedding's groom, to let him know I needed to get a drink. He inquired whether I was all right, so he must have detected something in my voice. I admitted to him I truly wanted a drink and I wasn't. I gathered all the printouts silently and headed to the bar. Arriving first, I ordered 4 Jack pictures along with a beer. As my friend Ted came and inquired about what was going on, I was on my last shot. Mia was cheating. I told him right out. He showed me sympathy. I inquired whether he wanted to know with whom. He seemed clearly agitated when I told him it was Jack. He was the one first introducing Jack to me. All he could say was, "I'm sorry," over and over. Jack and I have never been quite close. Although we wouldn't invite one another to hang together, we were friendly if we happened to run across each other at a get-together. Having just discovered this and hadn't even spoken to Mia or a lawyer yet, I advised Ted not to discuss this with anyone. If his wife questioned what was wrong with me, I advised him to tell her I was having trouble at work. He concurred. Most of the evening we drank and chatted, then at approximately 3 in the morning, I got an Uber and headed home. Since I phoned Ted, it was the first time I checked my phone. There were missed calls and a lot of texts from Mia, asking where I was, when I would be home, and whether I was okay. When I got home she was curled up on the couch napping. I simply went to sleep walking up to our bedroom. She was in bed when I woke up, so I got ready and left the house. I went to pick up my car, head to my office and buried myself in work for the day. About 10 o'clock, I headed home. My wife surprised me by showing up to welcome me and mentioning she had dinner. "Would you like her to heat it?" she inquired. I turned her down and went to bed. Not far behind, she questioned me about what was wrong. I said I wanted to sleep and she should leave me alone. She persisted till finally I snapped and cried, "Mia, stop. I should be asleep right now. Leave." The attorney emailed me the next morning requesting a later-in-the-day meeting. I confirmed and prepared for my day. Mia had made breakfast and asked to chat when I walked downstairs to head out. I prepared a small plate and settled in. She began by noting that I had been acting differently and then went on and on mentioning my changes and asking why. I informed her that work had been demanding and that it will soon be all done. I told her I had to go after finishing. Counting down the minutes till I could see the lawyer, I headed to my workplace. I informed my assistant I was leaving to lunch with a customer. I left as my wife occasionally would call my work. The legal meeting went smoothly, and I turned over all the material I had collected on her. "Well, I'm sorry for all that's going on," the attorney said, "but I'm glad you acquired all this material. You see, most of your money your wife has no claim on since we live in a no-fault state." I told him I had not given that any attention. I was only thinking I should divorce her right now. He insisted on keeping the proof, but I told him I would rather he simply create duplicates as I hadn't told my wife yet and I wanted to avoid hearing her justification. He agreed and had his assistant copy made. When would she be served the papers? I asked. He advised me it would take 2 weeks. I thanked him then and headed off. I headed home to face my wife. She wasn't at home when I got there, so I phoned. None of it. I got back on the line. No response. I texted her, "If you're with Jack right now, I don't give a fuck. Arrive home. We must have a conversation." Not a minute later, she called me, not sure what I was talking about. I told her simply, "Get home now." About 15 minutes later, she showed up. I said to her, "Wow, look at that. 15 minutes, that's around the same distance between here and Jack's, not sure exactly." She turned to face me, stunned. She was just staring at me after I gave her a minute to calm down. "Well?" I asked. "Not much to say here." I let her carry on while she tried to gaslight and deny me. She got herself up and began to disparage me. To silence her, I pounded my hand on the table and drew out the proof. "Look at this mountain of things I've gathered on you," I remarked, showing it to her from the side. I then went through one printout at a time showing her. She told me to stop immediately and started to cry. She told me she loved me and tried to apologize. "Honey, what happened to that energy you had before? Just a minute ago, you were rather determined about denigrating and attacking me." I put my hand out and said, "Don't touch me," as she wanted to hug me and apologize. She suggested we could go to the bedroom and do whatever I wanted. Looking her squarely in the eyes, I said, "Sweetheart, I will never touch you again. Who else has these pictures and messages? You wish to know. My attorney. I am divorcing you. Now get a bag, sort your clothes and leave my house fuck-free." That was 3 days ago. I haven't heard from her since. I apologize for the length of this and any spelling mistakes. For people who have been where I am at, what can I expect from here? I appreciate you looking over this. You all gave me a lot of advice after I uploaded the first section of this, so I mostly followed it. I meant to conduct some damage control in my life this morning, hence I made a doctor's appointment to be examined for STDs. 2 days from now is that appointment. I then began calling every person close to me. My father and a few pals. They have all been quite helpful, providing their own guidance and inquiring as to if I require assistance with any one thing. But I turned it down since I had this garbage locked on. I then got on to calling her family. Thanking them for letting me into their family, I emailed her mom and dad saying I was appreciative of all they had done for me. But I told them I will really miss them tremendously since Mia and I are divorcing. Not really. They were somewhat smothering, and even if they are wonderful people, I'm glad I'm free from dealing with it. I next advised them to feel free to ask questions should they have any. After not getting back from them for some time, I turned to Mia's sister. This kind of hurt since I knew it would sour her sister's friendship and we were excellent friends. Saying, "Hey, I'm sorry to have to text you this, but Mia and I are going to get divorced and I wanted you to know. I want to thank you. You embraced me as a brother right from the beginning. I will be here should you ever need anything from me." Her parents answered back at the same moment I sent the SMS. The dialogue proceeded as follows. "Parents, we regret learning of this. Whatever happened? Why has Mia not spoken to us? Mia has been in an at least 1-year-long affair. I suppose it began before our wedding. She hasn't gotten in touch, and I'm not sure why, but you should phone her. She went from the house. She would have gone to you," I reasoned. "Parents, we have not heard from her. We'll give her a call. Thank you for informing us. Are you really positive she was having an affair?" I'm upbeat. "Parents, we're really sorry she did that. You found their books. We will try and contact her. I took care of her family, then went on to Jack's fiancée. I know it was mentioned in some of the comments. I'm not sure whether I told you all he is engaged in the first section. I assumed this would be challenging, that Mia and Jack would have hatched some grand plans, but either Mia didn't tell them I discovered or they are just morons. About 2 o'clock, I texted her and asked whether we might get together for something like coffee. She accepted around 2:05, and instructed me to meet her at some terrible hipster coffee shop across from her workplace at 2:30. Arriving first, I ordered my awful coffee and waited a few minutes. She arrived and joined me after walking in. Placing her order, I said to her, "I'm simply going to blurt it out. Jack has been cheating on you with my wife. There's no simple way to say what I'm about to tell you. It has been going for almost a year." She seemed clearly startled, so I told her I'd only learned a few days before. I know I ought to have told her then, but I had a divorce to start and my own pity to cope with. She inquired about my source and I responded with everything covered in the first piece. Then I brought out a binder and asked whether she would want to view the material I had collected. She took the binder, quickly went over the photographs and notes, and then began to weep softly. She is more than welcome to grab the binder. Extra copies if she wanted to confront Jack with it or check whether he would lie. She thanked me, got up, picked the binder, and let me know whether she needed anything from me. She nodded her head and left, obviously demoralized. I know you all advised me to keep a level head, stay sober and whatnot, yet my world collapsed on top of me. This week I'm going to sit on my rear porch, drink, smoke cigars, and blare music. I'll stop feeling bad about myself after this week and resume my regular calendar. More positively, I have already packed most of her belongings, clothing, jewelry, etc. I also threw every picture with her in our wedding book into the crates. I want her here no more than she needs to be should she return for her items. Besides a few picture frames, nothing is shattered. Before you ask, no, I didn't ruin her clothes. Right now, nothing else is happening. I told everyone I ought to have told. 90% of her stuff is in boxes. My doctor's appointment is set. My lawyer is hard at work trying to get me out of this crap. I truly have no idea what remains. Should she stay out of my life, this may be the simplest divorce ever. I appreciate you looking over this. One values advice constantly. Update 2. Hey everyone. I'm sorry I missed in action for a little and didn't reply to comments and mails, but I believe I caught up now. Regarding the update, I have been enjoying my pity party, drinking, and even more drinking since the previous time. Since I discovered everything and can't really put into words how I feel, this is probably my first semi-sober moment. I suppose numb is a good word. I told everyone all I informed them in the last post. The only one not responding was Mia's sister, from whom I was rather close. After writing the update, that evening I carried on my drinking spree, passed out on my back patio with a bottle and several beer cans all about, and woke up to the fragrance of breakfast cooking. Oh Christ, Mia came back and thinks breakfast is going to make up for what she's done, I first thought. Surprised, let's name Mia's sister Emma, I built myself up into a fury, flung myself from the chair, ready for a yelling match. Emma hurried to me and wrapped her arms around me when I stood there momentarily attempting to cool myself. She realized I was awake. She said nothing. She just took my hand, walked me to the table, and set a plate in front of me. She told me how sorry she was while I ate and that when her sister showed up at her place she simply stated that we were having issues and that everything would be good in a few days. She then informed me that when I texted Mia regarding the divorce, she asked Mia, if it's fine, why is he divorcing you? Mia apparently simply broke down and told Emma everything. I laughed and added, there's no way she told you everything, then went on to relate all that had happened. Emma informed me Mia had indicated it was only one time and I was exaggerating it. Emma was here wasting her time since I told her I had no intention of getting back together with Mia. I also advised her to let Mia know she should get a lawyer if she gets in touch with her. Emma chuckled and remarked she was here for me, not for her sister. She told me she would be there for her sister naturally, but that she and I are friends and she wouldn't forsake me, particularly if I did nothing wrong. I got up, moved to her side of the table and just gave her a hug. Hearing her say that made me feel so much better since I was so concerned that all this crap would sour our friendship. Emma left this morning as I was getting ready to head to my cabin. She remained with me for 2 days in the guest bedroom. I had it before the marriage, thus Mia cannot touch it. She asked if she might join me as I was assembling my hunting and fishing gear, but I told her as much as I would want. She should most likely go check on her sister. She hugged me, agreed, and walked off. Emma is really appreciated for being there for me. Before any of you claim she's into me, she isn't. She is also 20, and for me that is far too young. Simply said, it's a very close friendship. I nearly forgot to mention that I visited a doctor. underwent tests, and should get results on Monday. A couple times I have personally contacted Jack's fiancée to just check on her. She says she's good, but she has no idea what to do. I'm more than happy to listen if she wanted to meet any time next week so she could rant. I really appreciate all the appreciation you have given me, as well as reading, getting in touch. In my life, you all have been a lighthouse during a somewhat dark period. The only thing I can advise any of you experiencing this is I am to put your head down and concentrate on what you truly want. Whether it's reconciliation or divorce, make one at a time goals. For me, it was lawyer first, then doctor, telling all those close. Keep it off of the internet though. Set time also to release your emotions. Thank you once more. Apologies, these updates always seem so long. Update 3. I discussed Emma visiting my place and spending several days in my prior post. She left when I was headed hunting for my cabin. Positively, I scored a buck, a good, big 8-pointer. I'm very glad I acquired him on my first day out, as it allowed me the remainder of the time to go fishing. I fixed one dinner and killed the other, since I only caught 2, but they were good size. I stayed at the lodge cleaning my deer and savored the natural surroundings throughout. Apart from 2 glasses a day, I traveled sober as promised. My drinking was just for last week. On to the last couple days now. My doctor called and I'm all clear. Though Mia and I haven't had much enthusiasm in a few months, it's not really shocking. All the same, you never know. I contacted Jack's fiancée but didn't hear back for some time. She answered finally, saying she is currently staying with her family. She didn't really go into great depth, but her being with her family, you could only guess, as I do, that things are not going so well. At least she's with family, protected, and with all the help she might require. All she needs to do, I reminded her, is reach out, if there is anything I can do. Naturally, I accepted when she invited me to meet and get coffee the next day. We convened at the same horrible hipster coffee shop the following day and spent almost 2 hours chatting. We discussed all that Mia and I had gone through. She wanted to know if I was divorcing, if I would be reconciling, or what steps I was following. In my book, I informed her, that's it after someone cheats. The degree of selfishness and disdain required to cheat, let alone for a year, showcases clearly her lack of concern for me. What was her plan? I questioned her. She confided in me that she is perplexed about everything and that all she believed to be factual turned out to be lies. Whether to go on or to forgive him, she wasn't sure what her next action should be. You're a better person than me if you can forgive someone for cheating on you for that length of time, I advised her. She told me all of her family was advising her to forgive him and then get married. Just because it's what your family wants doesn't mean you need to follow along, I advised her, being direct. Then I said, Jack cheated on you, his fiancée, with my wife. He clearly doesn't give marriage and what it all implies any thought. Should that not convince you he is not marriage material, I am not sure what else does. I advised her to follow her moral compass and not let anyone else except herself make choices impacting her life. When I found out, all I could do was consider how my heart could fool my head into thinking of some way I could accept it and forgive Mia, but I just could not do it. I claimed too that I only spoke with one individual, but that I had already decided and that nobody could change my mind. When you stayed with your family, you had a very decent notion of what you were going to do, but you let too many people in and they all interpreted it any way they wanted. I ended by telling her all she had to do was trust her gut. Her heart and brain will constantly lie to her. If her gut senses something is odd, 9 out of 10 times her gut is most likely accurate. She said thanks, and we headed home separately. My lawyer messaged me the next day saying Mia had been served successfully at her place of employment. I appreciated all of his work, particularly in relation to the timescale he has achieved. Emma called not long after that to inform me Mia has stayed in her room all day and is crying in bed. Mia was served, and she is most likely realizing how terrible she screwed up. Emma wanted to know whether I had anything and how the cabin was. I told her all I did and how my stay went. We spoke for a little, then hung up. I then got ready and cleaned my house for her response. Given her recent serving, I reasoned that she will burst shortly, given that she has time. I am thus calmly waiting for it now. I have Advil on hand for what I would guess to be a little headache. When I informed a friend, he nodded. Should Mia show there, he would dash over to act as a witness, should all else fail. I'm writing right now, awaiting Hurricane Mia to rip through my house. Should she or when she does, I will forward another update. I appreciate each of you reading. Update 4. About an hour or so after publishing yesterday, I was waiting for Mia to show up at the house and go ballistic. Though given all that has happened, I never truly knew the woman. I had no real reason to believe she would behave. I checked every camera I had set up, inside and outside, to make sure they were running as they should. Telling my friend that Mia was served today, I told him he should get to my place right away should she show up. Thanks to this woman, I am not going to jail. Turns out I was correct since Mia arrived at the house screaming to allow her in and banged on the door. Mia was pounding on my door, so I called Emma and my friend right away to get here. She was shouting every name in the book, berating my name, imploring me to allow her in and wondering how I could be so callous. She's not incorrect, as all I could do throughout the time she was screaming and pounding on the door was giggle. Then I questioned why she didn't just stroll in since, at least from what I knew, she still carried keys. My friend arrived still screaming and cursing, so he started to record on his phone and stayed in his truck. But these morons brought Mia's buddy, his wife, with him. She thus came out and aimed to cool Mia down. She approached Mia, arms around her, attempting to get her to talk, but Mia then slapped her across the face, shouting at her to mind her own business. That led my friend, who now has a video of it, to call the cops. Till the cops arrived, Mia kept screaming and cursing. She put much effort on portraying the victim when they did. She started to weep and tell the two cops I hit her and threw her out of the house. Mia was yelling and pounding on the door when my friend and his wife arrived at the house, so they verified that I hadn't followed her advice. Officer was done chatting with my friend and his wife, then he came to my door. Mia remarked, "There, that's him," when I opened it. "He struck me. I want him taken into custody." I told the officer I could prove she was lying to him, all I needed, so she started to put me in cuffs. Stopping, the officer instructed me to show him the view captured on the exterior cameras. Having seen the video, he said he was sorry for presuming I was the one in error and for drawing snap judgments. I told him I didn't blame him, but he then informed me my neighbors had called them 15 times overall, and allegedly Mia had yelled out, "He hit me," during her outburst. Thus the cops had rendered their decision already. Mia spent around half an hour dealing with the police before being charged with disturbing the peace, public intoxication, and a DUI and being placed in handcuffs. Emma showed up and came to me inquiring what had occurred as the cops drove her to the car. I played her the entire video on my phone. Then the officer came up to give me some extra documents and the case number. Emma started to probe the charges, so I returned inside. Emma came right behind and sat behind me. She informed me she had left her house for 10 minutes to run to the store, but when she returned Mia was no longer in the living room, so she assumed Mia had gone to bed after too much alcohol. After some time of conversation, Emma requested whether she might spend the night with me. She was always welcome whenever, I said. She informed me Mia had to stay the night in jail. I'm not sure why, but they may get her released early in the morning. Emma doesn't have that type of money, thus she told me when I returned inside she called her parents to let them know what was occurring and to see whether they could bail Mia out. We shared a beer and shortly went to bed. Emma had already left to see her folks when I got up in the morning. Though I haven't heard from Mia, Emma, or their parents, I wouldn't find it to be a lively discussion. Update 5. Since that evening, I haven't heard from Mia, but my lawyer received calls from hers informing him he will be representing Mia. At last we may begin this process. I also asked Jack's fiancée whether she had any updates on her front. We only chatted back and forth, but she informed me she kicked him out of her house and had her father and brother pack everything and drop it at his house. She stated she just wanted to put all this behind her and go on. Her dad and brother wanted to beat him, but she urged them not to. She said her close friends are available for her when she needs them and thanked me for checking on her. I emailed her the link to my Reddit page so she could view all the help you all provide her and to her. Friday, the instant I left the office, I ran home. I had intended to spend the weekend back in my cabin. Emma was in my driveway when I showed up. She had a list of what my wife expected and intended to obtain from her sister. I quickly went over it and all except one object was already in a box or sitting in my garage just waiting to be picked up. I informed her I'm not carrying or touching anything from here. I want to avoid liability should Mia wish to claim I damaged her belongings. Right now I'm heading to my cabin and don't have time to deal with Mia's crap, so I told Emma I would pay for a moving company to come and box all her stuff. That would be fantastic, she added, and hoped I enjoyed myself. She piled a box of Mia's clothes in her car. Then she turned to me and asked whether she may tag along this time. Sure, why not go back home, drop off the box and pack a bag for yourself, I asked. She was dragging up by the time I headed to the shop and loaded the truck. I shut my house and started Emma toward the cabin. The weekend turned out rather perfectly. I understood what a gem that location is when I was last visiting there. It is totally secluded and has a great perspective, thus I am free from dealing with people. Here you may really rest and breathe in. I phoned a moving firm on Monday, and by Tuesday 3 men in a large truck pulled up and began loading. As they closed the box and picked it up, I had every box opened. As the movers loaded all the furniture, I photographed every piece. I tipped each of them an extra $50 and thanked them all for letting me live. I then proceeded on with my day and submitted all the recordings and photos to my lawyer. The house looks empty yet also spotless without all her possessions. My lawyer advised me not to throw away anything that would be deemed shared when I started this process, hence I kept most of the furniture in a storage facility. Since she departed, I had been sleeping in the guest room. So, up until I started writing this piece, I had been shopping for entirely new furniture. Now that I have the garage, I most likely will be storing most of the stuff there. Even if I win the house in the divorce, it has too many negative memories, thus I won by not keeping it. Update 6. My last post was quite some time ago. Between finishing this divorce, handling my soon-to-be ex, and coaching these children, I don't have much free time at the moment. Quite a lot has transpired, hence this may be a long post. Please be patient. A few days after the movers delivered her items to Mia, my attorney received some documentation stating I damaged her items and that I would pay her $1,500 or she would be bringing me before court over it. Asking exactly where the damages she claimed I caused, my lawyer sent her all the footage and images. All this does is tell the judge how unhinged she is, and it might be a headache now, but when it's time for court, this will all be perfect evidence, he said. Her attorney wasn't prepared for my level of meticulousness or for me photographing and recording everything. I was, for some reason, pulled to this page and read all of the horror stories of the things people's previous husbands did to them when I learned of my wife's affair. I absolutely refused to be another one of those stories. I wouldn't put anything past her at this point. I have practically every consequence and accusation she could make ready for her. Mia had called once every other day, but I never answered. I merely forward her voicemail to my lawyer. I don't bother listening to it if she left one. Every time I forward my attorney something, he always tells me, "You are a wet dream for a lawyer. You pay attention to everything I say. On your own, you compiled a mountain of proof." I have not yet had a customer that has done so brilliantly. When I mentioned, he says that every time, he wasn't exaggerating, but it makes me smile. Having that confidence from him that I'm doing everything right helps me to feel somewhat better about the whole circumstances. My lawyer informed me roughly 2, maybe 3 weeks ago that we have enough proof to bury her outside of court. Should it fail, it would reflect well on us for efforts. We thus scheduled a meeting in a neutral lawyer's office a week ago. He advised me before we met, don't react to anything Mia might say. No matter what. Should it go before court, everything we do would be noted for a judge to review. Early in the morning we arrived and headed into the workplace. She was already there waiting with her lawyer, shockingly. When we arrived, the lawyers began chatting to one another. Silent sitting there, Mia and I waited for what was to come. Mia's attorney began by inquiring about our offerings. Mine laughed and declared, "With a mountain of proof of the affair and Mia's inappropriate behavior later, the only thing we'll offer is half of the selling price of the house and half of the savings account. That beyond what any court would award. You will be departing with basically what you entered into the marriage with." He then turned straight toward Mia and said, "If you choose to go to court, I will publish every message, making you read it all out loud. I will then post every picture up for all in court for viewing and ask you to meticulously explain what you are doing in each one. Then I'll mention your most recent accusations and show the footage captured that evening." Looking at me, Mia started to cry and asked whether she could do anything to right this. "You have been cheating on me since before our marriage," I remarked. "I can only show a few weeks before the wedding. I imagine there was far more. Nothing at all could possibly help me to forget or pardon you for what you have done. Sign the paperwork. It's more than you deserve and I want to be done with this whole hoax you produced." She had to excuse herself to the bathroom and shed terrible tears for 15 minutes. She still was in tears when she got back, but she signed the paperwork and left not long after. Everything will be filed in roughly 1 month, hence all I will have left to do is sell the house. I appreciate everyone reading and all of your wise counsel. Though I could be mistaken, I do not see anything else occurring. Should it, I will let you know. But most likely this will be my last post, hence once again, thank you everybody. I hope what occurred to me benefits at least one person else out there. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.